The season may be over for Manchester United, but the summer overhaul is only just beginning. And if there's anything we've learned over the past 24 hours is that there's some big names on their way out. And so today, because I don't really want to talk about the final game of the season because who cares, I want to instead look into next season and dive into the players who look like they could be out of the door, including some who are all but confirmed to be gone. Now obviously we spoke on the channel already yesterday about the Garnacho news with Ornstein. We don't really need to talk about Garnacho too much again. If you want to know my thoughts, just check those videos out, but all in all, it's a good deal. But someone who I'm actually kind of surprised to be talking about in a video like this already is Andre Onana, as it seems that he is quite deservedly out of the door. Now, the reason I didn't expect to be mentioning him on a video like this already was the fact that on the build up to now, the kind of common consensus, the news we're hearing is that although Amorim and the club would like to get rid of Onana, he's not high on the priority list. But today tells a different story. So there was reports coming out before the game this morning that Onana was unhappy with missing out on Champions League football, thus getting a 25% pay cut. Firstly, you dickhead, you're the one who agreed to those terms when you signed your contract. Secondly, you are one of the main reasons we're not in the Champions League in the first place. And so that is a huge red flag. The fact that he can't take responsibility for his own fuck-ups and is now angry about it. That just doesn't make sense to me. And so I would understand completely as to why the news has changed all of a sudden from Onana's not a priority sell to you're not even getting picked for the final squad of the season. That, to me, is what told me that there is at least a shred of credibility in those reports about his frustration and attitude issues. Because all season, we have put 2 goalkeepers on the bench. Even in games where Onana was not played or dropped or rested, whatever you want to call it, he would be on the bench still along with Hojlund. The only one I think that might not have been the case was after his calamity against Lyon. I think if I remember correctly, Amorim's wording at the time was that he wanted him just away altogether from football and take a break. So I can't quite remember, but I don't think he was in the squad then. But usually we would have 2 goalkeepers on the bench. That's kind of the norm. That wasn't the case today. Bayindir started, Hojlund on the bench, Onana not even in the squad. Just like Alejandro Garnacho, who we know is 100% leaving. So that tells me that Onana has now been fast-tracked towards the top of that list to be sold, which I think is only good news. He's being linked with Saudi. I think it's something like we need to sell him for 26 million or something like that to balance the books, which you would think, despite the calamitous season that he's had, that Saudi should be able to afford that, right? That can't be asking too much. But it did make me realise, it kind of opened my eyes today, how sorry I feel for Ruben Amorim. Because obviously he has overseen the worst season in forever. Understandable. You can have your reservations about him. Understandable. However, when you look at the bigger picture real quick, he has Andre Onana in goal, who quite a lot actually, claim is the worst goalkeeper in Manchester United history. And then on the other end of the pitch is Rasmus Højlund, who a lot of people, myself included, consider the worst striker in Manchester United history. Honestly, maybe even worst player full stop. I don't want to get into it. I think he's just horrendous. But man, I feel sorry for him. Arguably the 2 most important, the 2 game-winning positions on that pitch, and they are arguably the worst in their position in the league. And it's not like Amorim could do much about it either, because his options other than Hojlund are an injured 9.5 who can barely score a goal anyway, and then a literal child. Yes, he got rid of Rashford. He might be regretting that now. I don't think he quite knew just what he was getting himself in for there. But at the same time, listen, I don't fully understand the situation with Rashford. Nobody does unless you are Rashford, Amorim or Jason Wilcox. As for goalkeeper, Amorim's options are Onana, and as we've seen today and many times before today, the Turkish Onana. It's not good. And so part of me fully understands as to why this season's been so shit. But luckily, Hojlund, Onana, and also Bayindir should all be out of the door. And those 3 alone should bag you around about at least 60 odd million, you would think. Thankfully, he's not the only one we're talking about today, because it also seems as if Luke Shaw's time is up. Now, he wasn't in the squad today, however, that was apparently due to injury. Pretty ironic, right? It's so typical Luke Shaw, and it's why he needs to be sold immediately. It's not just the fact that he's injured again. He's one of the most injury-prone players I've ever seen. It's always just the timing of these injuries and the timing that he returns. It's like he goes away with England, injured, but just so happens to make it back for the final. He is injured all season for Manchester United, just so happens to make it back for a final, and then he fucks off again. Now, I'm not saying that he fakes injuries, because I don't think that's a thing footballers really do, but it does feel a lot like, you know, that kind of kid at school that would always skive, always fall ill on the day that homework that he's not done is due, but then if there was ever a non-school uniform day or a games day, he would be in school every single time. That's what it's like with Shaw. He can pluck up the fitness to be back for an important game, but can't give a fuck about the little ones. And also, I think he might be technically our most senior player at the club, I want to say. I mean, he's been there since Van Gaal's first season, right? He's been there since, what would that be, 2014 did he join? He's been here a long time, like 11 years. I don't think there's anyone at the club that's been longer than him. You could technically argue Johnny Evans, but that's over 2 different spells. Whereas Luke Shaw has been here throughout the entire dark days, pretty much, minus 1 season. And then there was that whole comment after the final about how him and the players need to look at themselves. Now they're just quite frankly not good enough, which is obviously true. But when your most senior player is saying that, it's just scrub it, get rid of it. He should have been gone a while ago, but if Amorim truly wants to do the open heart surgery that Rangnick said we should do all those years ago, then you need to erase that entire era of failure by erasing the players that played through it, with Luke Shaw being one. And it's not even like the games he has played when he comes back and makes himself fit for these finals, he's been good recently, because quite frankly, since he returned from his injury on the build-up to that Europa League final, I think he's been shit. It's why I really wish Amorim played Lindelof in the final over him. I don't know why he did that, especially considering Luke Shaw's not in his plans. The only thing I can think of is that maybe Amorim hoped some experience would help him, but like I said, experience what? Fucking failure? Great. But talking to Lindelof, he is another one that seems to be going out the door. I think with him, it's a free agent. It is what it is. Now, he started today, partly because, like I said, I actually think he's not been too bad. And also, he is an example of players that are leaving the club because it's their time, and players who are leaving the club because their attitude and ego stink. Like I said, Lindelof is not in Amorim's plans, but he still started today. Onana and Garnacho, not in Amorim's plans, didn't even get into the squad. I think that tells you everything you need to know. Amorim could have easily played Kokonki or any of the kids instead of Lindelof today, but he didn't because he deserved a send-off because his attitude and ego doesn't stink like the other players. And I think that is a clear message from Amorim. Now, thankfully, we can afford this full exodus this summer because we missed out on European football. It's kind of like a copium thing. It's like, well, you know what, maybe it was a good thing that we didn't win the Europa League. You know, we all wish we won the Europa League. We all want to see our team play in the biggest competitions that there are. I want to see us take on the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich, even if we do get pumped, because that's what football's all about. That being said, the fact that we only play 1 game a week now for the vast majority of the season means that we don't need an overly bloated squad. The likes of Victor Lindelof have only lasted this long because we've played European football. If we missed out on Europe years ago, Lindelof would have been gone because we wouldn't have needed him for squad rotation. We wouldn't have needed him for squad depth because we wouldn't be playing enough games. And so that is the one silver lining about all this, I suppose you could say. Think of it this way, it's kind of like you move in house. You're downsizing to a smaller house, right? Some of that stuff that you've been hoarding and cluttering and putting in the spare rooms just because you had a spare room and you needed to put things in the spare room, you don't need it anymore. That shit, broken, dying chest of drawers, get rid of it. Take it to the tip because you don't need it now because you're downsizing to a new house. That is what we're doing with this Manchester United squad now, thankfully. Another benefit of selling all these players is that it seems we won't need to sell Bruno. Also good news, Amorim in his final speech to the fans today at Old Trafford, absolute aura-filled speech, by the way, may I say. He went back to his comment that he made earlier in the season about that the storm is coming. Now, we all believed him when he said that, but at the same time, I don't think we actually believed him when he said it. However, he said today that effectively the storm is over and he can now tell us that the good days are coming. And I don't think he would have made such a bold claim like that if he didn't know that he was going to be getting big money from loads of sales to do the proper rebuild that he and the club need. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Am I just full of copium? I hope not. I hope this is level-headed, genuinely what's going to happen, but we are Manchester United at the end of the day. You can never be too sure.